Well, welcome to another episode of Rim Shots with Sean right here on the Rock Rage Radio Network, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. And this is vastly becoming the Curtain Call Records segment, so I may have to just naming it that. We have yet another Curtain Call artist here. I have Couper from the Holy Smokes. I love that band, or the name of the, yeah, I love the band name. Where did you guys get that?
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And thank you for having me, Sean. So to me, it kind of encapsulates a few ideas. These things that we hold as holy in our society, um, things that are super important and cannot be questioned, like certain ideologies or governmental systems in general, money, whatever it may be, and the idea of a smoke show like a smoke and mirrors show that it's, yeah, it's a good front, but there's not a lot behind it, that it's all trickery and whatnot. So to me, it was just kind of like an invitation to question the things that we kind of hold as unquestionable in our society.
Well, and the reason why I asked is because there's different connotations. When somebody says smoke show, they could be talking about a guy or a girl or a
Sure.
a vehicle or whatever. So that I love the imagery that you get from that. I'm very much as you can see, grew up idolizing Kiss, and I'm a fan of Halloween. So that whole imagery thing plays really well. Brian sent me some info. I'd just like to read it here, Cooper, if I could.
Absolutely.
Holy Smoke Show is a rock duo that stands for equality, justice, and bringing power to the people. It is the brainchild of frontman Couper King, who wrote, recorded, and edited all the songs himself. Couper also directed and edited the official music videos as well as the album art. So, I mean, yeah, you have a partner in this, but you're taking on an awful lot of, you're wearing an awful lot of hats. How does that work for you? How do you stay organized? Because anybody knows organization can be very challenging, and I'm one of those people that I definitely I believe that for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's constantly a challenge. Because I can seem to get overwhelmed. It's
Right.
I kind of use a what I call kind of like a zoom in perspective, because I have to maintain the vision for like the wider project and the wider vision and whatnot. But if I stay zoomed out too long, I can miss details that need to be zoomed in on, and also I can get overwhelmed if I think about the fact that, yeah, I've got to write the song. It's got to be a good song. It's got to have good lyrics and it's got to have good melody. And I'm writing the guitar parts and bass parts. And then I don't know if you can see over here, I'm actually recording everything and editing
Love it.
everything myself. And then I'm shooting the music videos and doing all the editing on all of that. And then figuring out how we're gonna take that and play it live and whatnot. It's a lot. So I can't concentrate. I get overwhelmed if I try to concentrate on too much of it, definitely all of it all at one time. So I'll kind of zoom in on certain things. So maybe once a week or so, I will come up with a game plan of like, okay, what needs to be focused on this week? And we also have time set aside every day. We as a band, myself and Marty Four, who's the drummer in this project, we get together every day at noon and we have practice, or that time is set aside to work on band stuff. So we have the time set aside, slotted out in our days. And then I have to kind of come up with big picture, what ultimately needs to happen, and then file that down to what can I do today? What can I do tomorrow? What can I do the next day? And just kind of bite it off in week-long chunks.
Right on. So here on Rim Shots with Sean on the Rock Rage Radio Network, I'm with Couper King, Holy Smoke Show, and you mentioned Marty. So it's a duo. Is it a duo in the true sense of it being a duo, like White Stripes, or guitar and drums, or bass and drums? Is that how you guys pretty much run it?
That's exactly right. Yep.
Okay. And any tracks involved? You doing anything like that?
Not right now. Not right now. Everything is live. So everything on the recordings, we tracked and edited here, and then we sent out to this guy named Casey Sable, who's become a really good friend of mine. He was the original vocalist for Periphery and does a lot of really amazing mixing and stuff in Nashville. And he mixed everything, but we only tracked the stuff that we could do live. So it's just
Okay.
guitar, bass, drums, and vocals on there. And then live, I'm playing the guitar and then using an octave pedal to switch down for the bass parts. So I can do both of those at the same time.
Well, and I mean, that's always been fascinating to me because I'm used to playing. I'm a drummer. I've always played in full bands. I've used tracks. I've not used tracks. But the two piece kind of configuration is neat because it can be challenging to fill up the space.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so I've got to think about that from like an arrangement perspective. Truthfully, that's kind of the biggest thing is,
Right.
and of course there's some element to it as far as like tones and whatnot, but truthfully, I have found that most of that for us can be occupied by being very intentional with our arrangements.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I mean, it keeps it interesting. And, the thing is too, I mean, there's a host of reasons why that configuration has gotten popular over the years. Sonically, people like it. There's not, a host of instruments you have to deal with. The challenge and the excitement of filling the space is, I hear quite a bit of, from people. The closest thing I could say that I personally played in it is playing, with a singer and a three-piece band, bass, guitar, and drums, where,
Mhm.
guitar takes the lead and it's the bass and drums, and you got to do what you can to fill the space up without doing too much. And so it's fascinating. You said that you didn't record anything you couldn't play at shows. So uh, you got this out. You've played in front of people. You've taken it in front of people. How's it gone over?
It's going really well.
Yeah.
It's going extremely well. I believe that if for me, I'm not trying to speak, I'm not trying to tell anybody else how to do their thing at all. For me, kind of the litmus test is if we can't set up in front of total strangers that weren't expecting to hear music and have certain parts in our set that stop them dead in their tracks, no matter what they're doing, then we need to reevaluate how we're doing what we're doing. And we've been able to go and test that um, up in Kentucky a couple weekends ago, down at the Louder Than Life Festival, down at Furnace Fest last weekend or whatever it was. We've gone to Washington, D.C. and set up in front of the Capitol. We've played PCB, Panama City Beach, down in Florida. Um, and these were all like pop-up shows. So it's kind of it's great for us to get reps. It's great proof of concept kind of thing. Like, is this thing functioning like it's intended to? And it allows us to put ourselves at the test of, can we stop people? Can we create fans almost literally out of thin air? Can we connect with people through our music?
You just used a term that I love, and I've used it, and the people up here have gone, you said get reps.
Yeah,
And for anybody that doesn't understand that, that's a prevalent term in sports where you're putting somebody in a game to get practice or get more, like a goaltender in hockey to get more, pucks or what
right
have you.
on.
I love that term. Um, because to me it kind of speaks analytics. Like you're almost like very thinking things from an analytics perspective. Do you guys chart some of that stuff when you're doing things?
Yeah, absolutely. We keep running numbers and a running conversation. We have a conversation after every single time that we play. We have a deliberate conversation of what can we learn? What can we do better? And the conversation starts exactly like that. When after we're done loading up and kind of decompressing and whatnot, we'll take inventory of, okay, what could have gone better? It doesn't mean we could play what we consider to be our best show or whatever. We're still going to ask that question: what could go better? How could we improve? What can we learn from this? And you're exactly right. I had a sports background before I started playing music professionally. And the first half of my life was dedicated to the sport of hockey. And so that's exactly what it was. And that's exactly the mentality. And a lot of the things that I have found kind of work for me in approaching anything in life, but specifically we're talking about music right now. I learned from that work ethic and what it takes to be pretty okay at hockey.
Well, that's interesting because hockey's being our national sport, and I ran a minor hockey association up here in Canada for 16 years and coached high school hockey and stuff. And never really started getting into analytics, oddly enough, till I got back into music and started looking at things like YouTube Studio and analytics and social media, and just seeing where people were coming from and demographics and just being able to go, man, I'm missing the boat on a number of things because it's right there in front of you and you can direct. And the only thing that analytics hasn't been able to do is help the Leafs win the Stanley Cup, probably ever. So that's very interesting. So
Uh,
how deep of a dive do you? Because I look at it like this. I was in corporate sales for years. People are always afraid at the beginning and at the end, right? They're afraid of the cold call because they don't know how it's going to go. They get through that, and they get through all the steps of the sales cycle, and then they're afraid of the follow-up because they're afraid they're going to be told no,
Mm.
right? So it's the middle part that they avoid because it's the most uncomfortable. How much of that do you guys use and deep dive into?
Hmm. That's interesting. That's an interesting question. I like that. I think so. For instance, so this is a new project that's only been releasing into the wild, into the public since May of this year. So we're only like
Right.
five months deep into this thing. However, we were working on it for almost 2 years behind the scenes, writing these songs, tracking the songs, getting them like we wanted to, finding the right mixer, all that kind of stuff, shooting some music videos. I had to learn how to shoot music videos.
Yep.
Um, so there was a lot that went into it. And now, because of the digital day and age, as much as I wanted to just release them all at the same time, old school style, I hard-headedly listened to, or begrudgingly listened, reluctantly listened to all the industry experts or whatever. And so we're releasing them one song every 2 months. So all these songs that we've been sitting on for over 2 years still aren't even released yet.
Right.
So I was intentionally, get back to your question, I've been intentionally holding myself back from writing new songs because I I've been lucky enough to tour a lot in my past and whatnot, and I know that no matter how much you love a song, you're gonna get sick of it at some point.
Yep. Yep.
That's just how it goes, and I accept that, and that's cool. What I didn't want to do was be sick of it before it was even released, before we even got it out there and beat it to death on the road.
Sure.
And I know that as soon as I start writing new stuff, I don't care about the old ones as much. You know what I mean? Then I'm just
I do.
excited about whatever thing that we just wrote. So I've been intentionally avoiding the first part, the cold call in this
Yep.
analogy. I've been intentionally avoiding starting the creative process again, getting back into writing and recording and seeing what works and whatnot. So I've been holding that off for over a year now. And so now I'm kind of at that stage of I've just broken through that stage of okay, yeah, no, we're gonna start laying some stuff down. But it's been that fear of every songwriter I know of that I've ever talked to has this fear in the back of their head, like that because these songs seem to kind of come out of the ether or out of the zeitgeist or
Yeah.
whatever, that none of us know if we're ever going to write another good one, you know? And
Yeah, fair
so,
statement.
yeah. And I do think, get back to reps, I do think that songwriting and playing and all those things, it can function like a muscle. I think that only explaining it that way is an oversimplification and you're missing part of the analogy or part of the equation there, but it can absolutely function like a muscle. And so for me, shutting it down for over a year, the voice kind of creeps back up in my head. It's like, well, maybe the new stuff you write doesn't sound anything like the old stuff, and the fans that you're gaining now aren't going to like all that kind of stuff.
And I truly believe that as well because I mean, like if you take drums as an instrument, any instrument really, but um, I might go 3 or 4 days. I practice a lot, but then I'm like, I don't feel like it. And sometimes the chops are better. The muscle memory's there, but some of the stuff that's been a little sloppy just kind of fixes itself, which is cool. Um, but you're bringing up an interesting point because you know the waterfall releasing of tunes, basically all the analytical data that I've seen and read and people that I've talked to says that's really and truly the only way you're going to have success these days because people's attention spans are so ridiculously small.
Yeah, and I think because we can binge things like we didn't even really have access to. And well, we can binge and we can move on. I remember like as a kid, getting a new CD or whatever. Yeah, I'd binge it, but I'd binge it for months because I couldn't afford another CD for another couple months or
Right.
whatever it may be. Um, so now, like for instance, the last album that got released that I was like really looking forward to and then binged like crazy as soon as it came out was the latest Tiger Cub album, and they released a couple singles, the Perfume of Decay album, and they released a couple singles, and I thought they were awesome, and I was really stoked to hear the album, and then they dropped the album, and I was so excited, and I listened to it like crazy for a couple days. But I think because we can move on quicker, we
Yep.
do move
Yep.
on quicker. and so it's not like I love that album. It's really really cool. I think Tom Dalgetty did the whole thing too, and he's probably my favorite mixer around these days. And um, but yeah, whereas if they had been releasing one a month or one every couple weeks or one every 2 months or whatever it may be, then yeah, maybe it maintains the attention span a little bit better.
Well, friend of mine likens it. He uses the analogy of The Sopranos, where when you watch The Sopranos, you dug into an episode, then it was like over, and then you had to wait another week, and then you tuned in, and then they did their 13 episodes or whatever it was, and then they took a year off before the next one, and it was like, and you just want it more and you want it more, so you kept coming back. So they didn't give you like everything where you could just
Right.
go, I'm gonna binge here for a week. No, no, no. You had to actually follow the program.
I think
And
it's
so
tricky too, though, because it's got to be really good, though. You know what I
it
mean?
does,
Like for
absolutely.
instance, like Ted Lasso, I think, at least here in the States, probably the same way there. Actually, I have no idea. But Ted Lasso was the last show here that I could buy into, and I was willing to wait a week every
Yep,
week
yep.
for a whole season and stay engaged. I feel like most stuff that gets released these days isn't good enough for me to wait that week. I'll just be like, eh.
Well, I'll let you know a dirty little secret. If I'm going and I'm surfing and looking at Netflix, I'm the first guy that goes, "Is this many episodes?" Because if it is, I'm going to go on to something else because I don't have the time to buy into something, and it irks me because I really like to do that.
Yeah,
Um, but in my mind, I'm going, I can invest an hour and a half on something, but everybody's telling me about the Menendez thing, and I just can't do it because it's right now I just don't have the time. I want to get into a couple of questions that I ask all the curtain call artists here because the answers have been fascinating me. So for starters, I never even got into what part of the world do you live in?
we are in northern Alabama right now.
Okay.
Marty grew up here. I've lived all over. But yeah, we're in northern Alabama right now.
And where did you grow up? Just because I'm wondering because of the hockey sort of angle.
I did grow up in the rural South, which made me a complete anomaly being in the hockey world. But then I
I
moved
was
across the country. I moved out to Colorado when I was 14 to take playing seriously.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say because typically the hubs are Colorado would be one, Michigan, Minneapolis, Los Angeles because of Wayne Gretzky is huge out there now. I
Arizona
act
now. Arizona's got a good hotbed. Dallas has had a good hotbed for a long. There's been some good uh, youth hockey programs for a while now surrounding the NHL teams that are.
Well, absolutely, and it's interesting because I right where I am right now, I'm about 10 minutes from where Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon grew up.
Oh yeah,
Um, they come back every summer and bring a bunch of NHL guys in to train, and they let the kids come in and watch and stuff like that. It's really cool. So anyway, enough about hockey. Um, so curtain call. I always like to ask the question. Well, here I'll ask this first because when my listeners and my viewers ask, what are these guys like? They sound like I hate to do the comparable game, but I find sometimes with the way people kind of think, you have to do the comparable game to get somebody in the door. So if I was to say, okay, Cooper, give me a comparable of who you guys are, what would you tell me?
Do you mind if I tell you what we were going for and then tell you what the feedback we've gotten?
Absolutely.
Okay, because obviously I think like any other artist, I'm too close to it to look at it objectively.
Sure.
The artists we were listening to when we were arranging these songs and deciding how to record them and whatnot were Royal Blood, Dead Poet Society, Tiger Cub, Dinosaur Pileup. Um, Not a single person that's heard the album has come back and said that we sound like any one of those bands. So
So that's not a bad thing, I don't think.
yeah, some of the people that have some of the feedback we've gotten so far has been Seether, has been Corey Taylor.
Okay.
Um, those are probably the biggest ones that we've heard so far.
So maybe a little heavier than what you initially sort of set out to
Yeah,
do.
and I think most of that. I was just hanging out with Casey this past Friday, and we were talking about that. That he comes obviously Periphery is a whole different thing than what we're going for, and even what I ever really listened to. Truthfully, I mean, I flirted with metal um, in my like preteen years and like early teenage years and whatnot, but I never got into metal all that much. I've always been a rock guy, but
Yeah.
never like metal all that much. And Casey is like um a huge metalhead and very versed in that world, and that's the kind of mixes usually. Those are the kind of sounds and whatnot. So we took something. It wasn't written with any sort of like. It's definitely rock, and there are some heavier parts in there,
Right.
but because of the way Casey mixed it, it ended up being kind of metal guitar tones and metal drum tones and that kind of stuff, even though it's not metal music. So I think it ended up being something different than what we were even going for, but I think it also ended up being something pretty unique that it has been difficult to get a comparison answer to.
Well, and I love that. I mean, like I often have people ask me, describe your drumming style, and they'll say because we think it's this, and it's actually I'm a master at absolutely lifting fills note for note from songs and putting them in my own compositions, and people not knowing where they came from because I'll change them up a little bit. But
For
I'll
sure.
have to say, you know what? I got this off of, this album, side one, song three, and but that's just the way I am. Last question I'm going to have for you here. Curtain Call Records, because a lot of their artists have been telling me, what a great time they've been having with the label, the help they've been getting. What I guess what's your impression been? And you said you've only been there 5 months, short period of time. What's your impression been?
It's been good. Yeah, it's been good. We have a weekly phone call, which it'll be tomorrow, so every Wednesday, and we get on the phone, we talk with John and talk about what's going on in our world. He catches us up on what's going on in his world, and we talk about how we can make those worlds kind of overlap a little bit. And he's been super supportive. Um, yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, and I mean, I've talked with John quite. I'm actually working on something with him, and I like what they do. I like the different acts that they have on there. They're not one kind of label. It's not one size fits all. There's room for everybody, which I think is great. So I think that's fantastic. Last question. I said the other one was last, but this is the last one. Cooper, where are my viewers and listeners going to find out more about you guys?
So we've got what, 4 songs so far already streaming on all the major streaming platforms. You can go to our Instagram at Holy Smoke Show Music. If you're more of a TikTok person, because this is interesting. I found this out like a week before we went live that the word smoke is restricted on TikTok.
Oh,
So I couldn't use the band's Holy Smoke Show TikTok. So it's under my personal TikTok, Couper.King. We have a website, holysmokeshowmusic.com. It's got everything about us. It's got shirts on there that we actually make ourselves because I own a screen printing company as well.
nice.
And it's got all of the songs, even the ones that are unreleased, so you can stream them for free on our website, holysmokeshowmusic.com. You could also buy them for whatever you think is fair. Yeah, those are the great places to check us out. Facebook,
Well,
Holy Smoke Show.
well, Cooper King, I really appreciate you doing today on Rim Shots with Sean on the Rock Rage Radio Network. Let's stay in touch, my friend. I'd love to. What I heard so far, I really like, and I will tell you, it might not necessarily be a type of music that I would go and seek out, but part of the joy for me of doing this is I'm getting to hear stuff that I never would have heard before, and I like what I'm hearing. So thanks for doing this, my friend.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate you having me.
We're back after this.